Hello again. Now, on this video, I want to try and give you some examples for you to apply to yourself. And I want to try and show you how you can apply this method I talk about to your own situation. And I'll show you basically how it was I used to be, the things I used to get, the symptoms I used to get in the past. And then show you my attitude towards them now and to the whole area of anxiety. And hopefully you can apply what I've said to your own situation, and you can begin to practice doing what I've been talking about. Now, for very many years my life was very restricted by fear, by anxiety, and there were so many things I wouldn't even think of trying to do because the anxiety was such that I just thought, no, I won't be able to do it. I'd be too afraid. I'd be feeling all these horrible feelings. I just couldn't face them. And I know that's how it is for many of you. There are any number of things that you avoid doing because of your fear. And what this acceptance approach is aimed at doing is to get you to practice dealing with fear, the fear you feel within yourself when you're in these situations. Now, of all the things I've had over the years, the most recent one, and I have talked about this before, but I'll show you again. The most recent one has been balance problems, dizziness, lightheadedness. And I know this can be a very upsetting thing to carry around with you when you're out and about trying to do stuff. And it certainly was for me, because there was a point where it was so bad that I really didn't feel I could cope anymore trying to do anything with it. So what I talked about on another video is I've described how I came to the realization that I couldn't do anything about any of these fear feelings because I didn't need to do anything about them. There never was anything I could have done about them because they were always outside of my control. And this is the key issue that people don't understand. Cannot control fear feelings directly. You just can't do it because it comes from the autonomic nervous system, which means it's automatic, it's involuntary, it's out of your control. So any attempt that you make to control it just makes it worse because you're interfering with something that doesn't need or shouldn't have your interference. The only thing it succeeds in doing is making it worse, keeping it going. Now, this is how it was. This is how it had gotten with me. Now, I've spoken about the stroke I had and how that kind of started me on the road to being so afraid of balance and dizziness and all this stuff. During the worst times, when I had some really horrible times when I used to go out, and I mean, I was naturally enough afraid that I was going to have another stroke, which is understandable in the circumstances. But what I had got wrong was that I thought that this lightheadedness, this terrible dizziness, meant that this is what was happening to me. I completely misunderstood why this dizziness had become so bad. And it was all the fear I was adding to the imbalance problem I had anyway. It was the fear I was adding that was making it so bad. So I knew what I had to do. And throughout much of last year, I practiced doing things that I found hard to do. I practiced doing them more. I started doing a lot of things that I'd avoided, and one of which was actually doing something about a terrible garden, which didn't sound like it's much of a job. But for me, it was extremely difficult because all the movement and bending and twisting and all the rest of it used to make my balance go terrible. And I found I could only do it perhaps half an hour, and then I had to stop and just to kind of steady myself again, and then I could do some more. But that was just the stroke effects. Yeah, that was the only reason. But I kept on doing it, and by the end of last summer, I'd done more than I had done for years previously. And I was really quite pleased. Now, the thing about it, what I did in this situation was to keep, when I was out practicing doing the things that I thought I couldn't do with the dizziness there, you know very well what it's like. You get all this terrible, frightening stuff going through your head as to what you fear the consequences will be. And for me, with dizziness, I used to think, well, things like, oh God, supposing I collapse in the street, supposing I trip over and fall flat on my face, supposing I walk into a lamppost or just flake out or something, all these kind of thoughts were going through my mind the whole time. And with all that, this is what compounds the problem, all these frightening thoughts, what if, what if, what if, until it builds up such a feeling of terror inside of you that to keep going when it gets to that point, it seems impossible. You feel like, I can't do it, I'm running away. And believing me, that's what I did a few times, I can tell you. It got too much and I used to bail out. So what I continued to do, I thought, well, it's no good running away from it. I'm never going to get better if I keep running away from it. So I just practiced again. And this is why Claire Weeks made a big point of saying you practice. Because practice means you're just doing it on any particular occasion, you're doing it. If it doesn't work out, you do it again the next time. You practice again the next time. So that is the approach I took. I used to think to myself, well, it doesn't matter how I get on today. It doesn't matter at all. I'll just have a go. I'll just practice doing it. And if it, if I'm not happy with the way it goes, too bad. I'll just practice the next time. And it doesn't matter. In other words, it didn't matter how I got on. It didn't matter at all. It's just another practice. So I kept on, kept doing these things, going out, and all this frightening stuff going through my head. But gradually, the more I did it, I began to hear more confident words in my head, such as, well, you managed that all right. Nothing terrible has happened, has it? You didn't fall over, or none of the terrible things you feared happened actually did happen. Nothing happened at all. And this is what happens as you start to face and accept where you are, whatever it is you're feeling and whatever it is you're doing. As you do that, you start to hear some encouragement in your own mind, such as I've described, such, come on, it's okay. You've done this before. The more you do it, you build on the confidence you get from each practice. So when you go to do it the next time, you think, well, that was all right last time. I managed last time and I can do it now. And you accept whatever way you feel, you're willing to accept that that is how it is. You're not going to try and make it stop or change it in any way. So that's what I did. I used to keep over and over doing these things that I found so hard to do. And now, after about a year of not being in the anxiety state the whole time as I was, I still get the effects of the the stroke after effects if I move my head too suddenly, or especially if I move my head too suddenly, everything starts to revolve around me. But now, because I've done this so much, I think, it's just the same old stuff. Nothing to worry about. because I've had this time now where I'm so totally absorbed by anxiety, it's given my nervous system a chance to heal its sensitized state. And having done that, I now don't have to suffer these intense fear feelings like I used to have. This is what happens the more you practice. Your nervous system starts to calm down, and then you just get, fear feelings like anyone else might get. But it's the exaggeration that you're trying to tackle. It's the exaggerated fear feelings that this method is designed to deal with. Sit yourself down. He always comes in and distracts me when I'm talking like this. He's such a lovely cat. We should just sit down and stop flapping a tail in my face. He's a lovely boy. So that was that. That was dizziness. Now, prior to that, I think my biggest fear when I was out and about, and I know this is something shared by many people. Excuse me, it's tangled up in my cable. My biggest fear was of vomiting in public. The thought of that used to terrify me. I mean, just vomiting anyway used to terrify me. It's a fear I've had in my life. But it was that used to restrict so much of what I did. You're drowning me out. Yes, you're loud. Just see his ears. So that was the particular thing for so long. And I used to particularly dread being anywhere where I couldn't easily get out of. And I know you know that feeling of being trapped. Because when you're trapped and you feel trapped like that, your mind starts thinking, oh God, I can't get out of here. What happens if something bad happens? What happens if I panic? What happens if whatever it is that you fear happening, all that goes through your mind. You think, oh no, I can't face it, and you have to leave. That's especially true of panic attacks, because panic makes you feel so out of control. You just fear, because panic is, and I've talked about this a lot in my other panic videos, but because panic is so intense and feels so dreadful, you always think the very worst of it. You think something terrible is actually happening to you, you think you're dying, or at least something bad is happening, some bad illness or something like that. You're entangled in my cable here. You don't care, do you? So yeah, with me it was fear of vomiting, and wherever I went I used to get this yucky, nauseous feeling in my stomach, always there. And the longer I was doing something, the more it used to persist, and I used to think, oh no, supposing I'm sick in front of all these people, supposing all the what-if thoughts. I used to get over it. And so it used to limit everything I did. It used to limit where I went, how far I went, how long I was out, everything. And one thing that's common with all these types of symptoms, whatever it is, you fear about them. Oh, excuse me, it's very heavy on my legs. Whatever it is you fear about them, there's always some terrible consequence you imagine at the end of it. Like with me, for example, I used to think with vomiting wasn't just a fear of it happening publicly, but the fear used to go on. I used to think, supposing I kept on vomiting, well, what if it wouldn't stop? Right? That's a very common way that these fears kind of escalate, if you like. That's especially true of panic again, of course, because you think, well, what if the panic doesn't stop? What if I can't get out of it? What if it keeps going over and over again? That is how fear keeps its grip on you, because it's these thoughts of what, dreaded possibilities. That is what frightens you so much, and that's what makes you want to avoid stuff so much, because you fear the consequences. So with my fear of vomiting, I had to learn to do it as I did with the dizziness. I went practice doing things with all this nauseous feeling going on. Gradually, I used to find that having done all these things, and I'd never vomited. Again, I used to get encouraging feelings, encouraging words coming into my head, such as, nothing happened, did it? You didn't throw up, nothing bad happened, it was never going to happen. You see the idea, gradually as you get more practiced at going and doing these things with all this stuff going on inside of you, and you realize that you can still do them however bad you feel, you get the confidence that you're never in any danger at any time from any of this. The whole thing was just a huge bluff. It's another thing, another symptom that bothered me for a very long time. Used to be almost daily headaches, and this again, it turned into a cycle with me with headaches. I used to get them here or on the other side. It was mostly on this side. All my scalp muscles used to be so painful. I used to wake in the morning with it and kind of go looking for it. And sure enough, as soon as I went looking for it, there it was. And from that point on, my thought processes used to follow the same dreary pattern. I used to think, oh no, not again. Please, not another whole day of this. And the pain used to get so bad, I used to feel I couldn't do anything. A lot of days I used to just slump in a chair and watch the TV and not really watch it. I used to work myself up over this pain because it was so intense. And with it came other symptoms, like I used to breathe too quickly. That was always my reaction to the fear, to the pain rather, was to breathe too fast. That used to bring on this kind of a horrible, long, all day long feeling of feeling panicky. They used to upset my stomach. I couldn't eat. I used to feel sick. But again, I got caught in the cycle of fear over this particular thing. I had to do stuff as well. If circumstances required me to go and do things, and the headaches used to still be there, I used to feel, I used to dread it. So I thought, well, I can't cope, I can't think with all this pain. And it was, it was something that I gradually began to break the cycle of, and this is where I am today with headaches. I mean, sometimes mostly I get stiff necks now, not headaches as such. Occasionally I get a headache here. Mostly it's my neck that gets very tense if I'm working under pressure or whatever. But unlike before, where I used to dread and fear the headaches, now I think, well, so what? I know I can take a painkiller. Before, I would never take a painkiller because I thought the painkillers used to upset my stomach like aspirin. I always thought, I can't make it. It's going to make it worse if I take an aspirin. It's going to make me feel even sicker than I was. But then I discovered that paracetamol, another painkiller, didn't actually work the same way. And I practiced using those as well. Just not too many. But they did help a little bit. But they began to break the cycle a bit. But it was more, the greater part of getting over that was more in my attitude towards it. So I went from dreading it and fearing it to really not caring about it anymore. And this is what you're aiming for. This is the attitude that you're aiming for, to not care about it anymore. Because it's why you give it all this attention, where you focus your mind on it the whole time. It's that keeps it so intense, because you're so absorbed by it, whatever the feelings are, whatever they are. Now, excuse me a minute, I'm just adjusting myself as nobody's, nobody's gone. I was trying to think of other things that people were actually. I think two things that I certainly had over the years. Heart palpitation. That was something that used to bother me because I used to feel it pounding in my chest, and difficulty breathing. That again I used to get that accompanying my to balance problems. And whatever the feelings are, the same approach works with all of them. Now, I know you think, well, some things are easier to accept than others. Well, maybe so. But another one that's always used to bother me because of its association with vomiting. And this was when I used to feel like I was going to have diarrhea. I used to feel cramping and pain in my abdomen. And used to think, oh God, what if I can't get to a toilet, all this kind of thing. Once again, I did the same with that. I went in situations when I used to feel this kind of feeling inside. But I soon began to realize that once again, that was never going to happen. I don't want to get too graphic about this, but when you feel like diarrhea is going to happen to you, and it's diarrhea because of fear, you can't actually control it. You can control it with the use of muscles, shall we say. So that, you're never going to soil yourself because of it. That's what I'm trying to say here. And I proved that to myself as well, because I did a number of things with this kind of strong urge that I was going to do it. It never happened. And you see, that is the key thing to remember. You're proving to yourself that none of your terrible fears of what might happen to you actually ever do happen to you. They never will. And that is how fear keeps its control of you, keeps its grip on you, because there's always these fears there. What if something really bad happens? There are just countless numbers of these fears that people have as to what they think will happen to them. So, compared to then, now, I'm not, another thing you need to be clear on, you're not, by using this method, you're not kind of banishing fear from your life forever, because that's impossible, because fear is part of who we are. What you're doing is banishing exaggerated fear. It is that made you so afraid in the first place. It was the sensitized, exaggerated feelings of fear that got you caught up in this cycle of fear. But when you start to use acceptance on all of this, the exaggeration starts to fade. So now I can still be afraid. I don't care if I'm afraid. I know I'm going to be afraid in certain situations. But so what? I've had years of fear in my life. Years and years of it. And I've faced fear, and I've been into situations with fear at its worst. And I've seen for myself that fear has never done me any harm. This is what the practicing achieves. This unshakable confidence, no matter what you do, however bad the feelings get, they're never going to harm you, and none of the things that you imagine they will do to you will ever actually happen. So that's where I am now. I can still get worked up over certain things. Sure I can. I could still get the symptoms I used to have sometimes if I've been working under pressure, say, for a period of time, or if I've got particularly difficult jobs to do, I can get a kind of reminder of the way the feelings used to be. Like, for example, my stomach starts to feel a bit yucky, or I can get my bowels all upset, or my balance becomes worse. But so what? So what? I can still go ahead. I know I can go ahead with any of that there because I've practiced doing it so many times. And I know that I don't have to get caught up in that cycle of fear anymore because I've just seen how it works. I understand how it works, and I don't need to be afraid of it anymore. And this is what you're aiming for. This is what will get you out of this state, is practicing doing things with fear there and seeing for yourself that you are never in any danger from it, that you can still do whatever you want even if you are afraid. And when you stop caring about if you're afraid or not, then the fear has no reason to be there anymore, and it starts to go away all by itself. And that's the strange, paradoxical way it all works. So there you are. There are any number of different symptoms people get, and that's another area I really want to talk about some more, because there are so many subtle effects, shall we say, from long-term anxiety. So many feelings. Most people are aware of the common feelings of fear, but there are so many subtle other effects that fear can have on you that don't get talked about much. And I'm sure a lot of you, like I used to, would search high and low trying to see somebody describe these odd feelings and never had any luck. So I'm going to try, from all the things I can think of, describe all these rather subtle effects of fear. So hopefully that'll be even less for you to worry about in the future, because you'll see that I certainly had them and that nothing bad ever came of them. So anyway, I think that'll do for now. And please, I do encourage you, just however limited it might be in the beginning, whatever it is that you're avoiding, just do it a little at a time, at a pace you can manage. And then you'll start to gain this confidence you so need. And gradually you'll begin to see that this whole fear business has tricked you into this state. You misunderstood it, and now you're learning the truth about it. As you learn the truth, as the saying goes, the truth will set you free. It really will. So until next time, thank you for watching, and bye for now.